Welcome to today's deep dive. Before we get started, I want you to just take a second and think about your own career path and your hobbies.
Right. Just kind of map it out in your head.
Yeah. And now I want you to imagine being a Chinese-American martial arts pioneer
Okay.
and a boxing champion and a cult classic action movie star well into your 90s.
Which is already a massive list.
It is. Oh, and on top of that, being a practicing Methodist minister. All of that in one single lifetime.
It really defies the concept of a 24-hour day.
It absolutely does. I mean, when you look at the typical trajectory of a martial arts pioneer, you expect a lifetime dedicated solely to the dojo.
Or if you look at a member of the clergy, you expect a life centered around the pulpit.
Exactly. But the subject of today's deep dive, Liu Fong, has a resume that reads like 5 different lifetimes smashed into one. We are talking about an immigrant who was a teenage boxer, a licensed social worker, a martial arts system creator who ran in the same circles as Bruce Lee.
Incredible circles.
Right, and an independent movie director.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are exploring the Wikipedia article on Liu Fong today and attempting to figure out how one human being managed to fit all of this into a single existence.
It really is an extraordinary timeline to examine. When we look at someone with this level of output, what stands out immediately to me is how rare it is to find an individual who not only spans so many vastly different fields, but genuinely masters them.
He wasn't just dabbling.
No, not at all. He wasn't picking up weekend hobbies. He was a true practitioner in every sense of the word. His life serves as a masterclass in synthesis and resilience. He took elements from vastly different spheres of human experience.
The spiritual, the physical.
Yes, the creative, the social, and he wove them together. But to really grasp how that synthesis occurred, we have to look at the pressure cooker he was forged in, because it was not an easy start.
Far from it. Liu Fong was born Feng Tin Leon on November 23, 1928 in Xinhui, China. But his family didn't stay there. They made the journey to the United States, specifically arriving in Seattle. And the source material notes that upon arrival, they were detained.
Which was sadly a very common, harsh reality for immigrants coming from Asia at that time.
Yeah, due to the strict exclusionary immigration policies.
Yeah.
You have a family seeking a new life, and their very first taste of America is being locked up.
It's a foundational moment of adversity, but they persist. Once they were finally released in Seattle, they didn't just settle. They made their way to Chicago, where Fong's maternal uncle owned a restaurant.
Okay.
His father had a guaranteed job there, and he worked grueling hours to save up enough money to finally purchase his own business, a small grocery store.
But they didn't buy this store in a major metropolitan area with an established Asian community.
No, they bought it in Widener, Arkansas.
That geographic shift is wild.
It really is. Widener is described as a very small, rural, agricultural community. So now you have a young Chinese immigrant living in the deep south of rural Arkansas in the 1930s and 40s.
I can't even imagine the culture shock. And the article points out that Fong was the victim of intense racial taunts at school, which frequently escalated into physical fights. He was a kid in a place where he stood out, completely dealing with overt prejudice on a daily basis. But instead of withdrawing, he takes a completely different path. At the age of 15, he takes up Western boxing.
That decision right there tells you everything you need to know about his internal wiring. He was facing direct systemic and personal hostility in this small town, but he didn't let it turn him into a victim.
He fought back.
He channeled that hostility into physical discipline. Taking up boxing wasn't just about learning to throw a punch. It was a survival mechanism. It was about taking control of his environment and his own physical safety.
Right. He transformed a chaotic, hostile environment into a structured, disciplined practice.
Exactly. It's the first real glimpse we get of his lifelong pattern, taking whatever the world throws at him, no matter how harsh, and converting it into personal power and forward momentum.
And that momentum carries him out of Arkansas and into an academic journey that honestly gives you whiplash when you read it.
It really does.
After graduating from Forest City High School, he stays in Arkansas for a bit to attend Hendrix College, where he earns a Bachelor of Arts. His major was physical education.
Which makes total sense for a teenage boxer.
Totally.
Well,
But then he pivots entirely. He goes to Southern Methodist University and earns a master's degree in theology.
he actually gets ordained.
Yes, he begins a career as a Methodist minister.
Ah.
But he still isn't done. He heads out to Northern California, enrolls at California State University, Sacramento, and earns a Master of Social Work.
So we have physical education theology and social work.
On paper, that looks completely scattered.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's actually incredibly unified. It looks scattered if you view career paths as strictly linear, but Fong was building something much broader. Well, with physical education, he is mastering the mechanics of the human body. With theology, he is exploring the spirit, the moral framework of human existence and how we find meaning. And with social work, he is mastering the understanding of community.
Like how society functions.
Exactly, and how to practically help people navigate broken systems. He was simultaneously developing his physical, spiritual, and social understanding of the world. It's a completely holistic approach to life.
That holistic approach is the perfect lens for viewing his martial arts journey, which really takes off in the 1950s once he's settled in Northern California.
Right.
He starts exploring Eastern martial arts, specifically looking into judo and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But he didn't stop there. He ends up creating his own entire style called Wei Kun Do.
Yes.
And the source material lists the disciplines he integrated into this system. Listen to this. Jeet Kune Do, Sarada, Eskrima, Western boxing.
It's a massive list.
Choi Lei Foot, Northern Shaolin wrestling, Tang, Sudo, Taekwondo.
It just keeps going.
Karate, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, Arnis, and Wing Chun. That is 13 distinct fighting styles. But doesn't the phrase jack of all trades usually mean master of none? How did he keep Wei Kun Do from just becoming a messy, unfocused fighting style? 13 systems sounds like absolute chaos.
What's fascinating here is that Fong approached martial arts the same way he approached his education, as an ultimate synthesizer. He wasn't just haphazardly throwing punches from one style and kicks from another. He was deeply analytical.
So he was looking for what worked.
Right, he looked at the contrasts. You have the grounded, heavy grappling elements of Japanese judo and jiu-jitsu. You have the fluid, rapid-fire weapon strikes of Filipino arnis and Sarada Eskrima. You have the powerful linear striking of Western boxing and the dynamic high kicks of Korean Taekwondo and Tang Soo Do.
That's a lot of different philosophies.
It is, but he stripped away the rigid traditions and the performative movements of each, keeping only the biomechanics that actually worked in a real practical defense situation. Wei Kun Do was all about economy of motion.
So he essentially pressure tested all of these ancient and modern systems to find the common kinetic denominators.
Precisely. To build a cohesive functional system out of 13 contrasting philosophies requires a brilliant understanding of human kinetics. And he was passionate about codifying this. He wrote extensively, publishing books with titles like Choi Lei Foot Kung Fu and Silim Kung Fu, The Chinese Art of Self-Defense.
He also wrote Beyond Kung Fu, Breaking an Opponent's Power Through Relaxed Tension.
Yes, and Tiger Claw training and techniques and modified Wing Chun. He also co-authored Power Training in Kung Fu with Ron Marchini.
And he clearly wanted Wei Kun Do to outlast him. The material mentions that in 2017, he appointed a 3-person board specifically to oversee the continued instruction and propagation of his system.
That board included Klein Win and Bung Tamara Fong.
Right. But before we move on from his martial arts years, there is a massive connection that we have to talk about. Liu Fong was friends with Bruce Lee.
Yes, they ran in the same circles.
They trained together, they exchanged ideas. In fact, Bruce Lee actually arranged for Fong to appear on the cover of the 10th anniversary edition of Black Belt magazine.
Which was huge.
That is the absolute pinnacle of the martial arts world in America at that time.
Being in Bruce Lee's inner circle and being respected enough by Lee to secure a magazine cover validates Fong's status not just as a practitioner, but as a true peer among the greats. But Fong's trajectory is about to take another wild turn.
There we go again.
Because by the 1970s, he decides to take all of this physical mastery and translate it to the silver screen.
This transition into cinema starts in 1974. He takes an acting role in a Filipino martial arts exploitation film called Murder in the Orient, co-starring his co-author Ron Marchini.
Okay.
The following year, in 1975, he stars in Bamboo Trap alongside actors like George Estragan and Ron Van Cleef. But he doesn't just stay in front of the camera. By the late 1970s, he starts writing, directing, and producing. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Liu Fong's cinematic output became so distinct and he became so prolific that it spawned its own recognized exploitation film subgenre. Film critics and fans actually call it Fongsploitation.
That term is fantastic. Fongsploitation. For a bit of context, exploitation, cinema refers to high-energy, low-budget independent films that try to succeed financially by exploiting current trends or niche genres.
Like martial arts.
Exactly. In this case, the massive boom in martial arts and gritty urban action. Fong carved out his own unique empire within this world.
Wait, I have to stop and ask about the glaring contradiction here.
Sure.
How does a practicing Methodist minister transition into starring in and eventually directing violent, low-budget martial arts movies? Did he face backlash? It seems like two completely incompatible worlds.
It does seem contradictory on the surface, but if you look closely at the narrative structure of Fong's films, they almost always function as morality plays.
Morality plays.
Yeah. Yes, they are wrapped in the gritty, low-budget aesthetics of 1980s exploitation cinema. There are biker gangs, shootouts, and martial arts brawls, but the core is almost always about a righteous individual standing up to systemic corruption or protecting the vulnerable.
Oh, wow.
He was essentially taking the themes of his social work and his ministry, like justice redemption,
Okay.
protecting the flock, and translating them into a cinematic language that appealed to the masses. The medium was violent, but the message was surprisingly moral.
That makes a lot of sense when you look at his breakthrough films in the 1980s. Let's talk about Kill Point from 1984, which was directed by Frank Harris.
A classic.
Fong plays a Los Angeles-based policeman named Lt. James Long. The plot is just pure, unadulterated 80s action. Long teams up with an FBI agent played by the legendary Richard Roundtree to hunt down a gang of criminals who stole heavy weapons from a National Guard armory.
Right.
Their goal is to stop these guys before they can sell the arms to local street gangs. It's a classic setup of righteous lawmen trying to prevent urban decay.
And that partnership with director Frank Harris proved very fruitful because 2 years later, in 1986, they released Low Blow. This one is a massive cult classic. Fong plays Joe Wong, a San Francisco-based private investigator operating out of a messy, stereotypical PI office. He is hired by a wealthy businessman to rescue his daughter and heiress, who has been brainwashed by a strange religious cult.
The cast for Low Blow is amazing, too. You have classic Hollywood actors like Cameron Mitchell and Troy Donahue appearing in this gritty indie flick.
Yeah, the casting was wild.
And Fong actually reprised that Joe Wong characters later that same year in a film he co-directed called Blood Street. In that one, Joe Wong goes searching for a missing husband and ends up crossing paths with a ruthless father and son criminal team.
What's remarkable about this period of his life is his sheer resourcefulness. He wasn't waiting for major Hollywood studios to cast an Asian American lead.
Which was incredibly rare at the time.
Exactly. He built his own cinematic ecosystem from the ground up. He wrote, he directed, he produced, and he acted. He also had a real knack for creating a recurring ensemble.
Like a theater troupe, almost.
Basically, yes. If you watch his films from the 70s through the 80s, you'll see a stock company of actors he frequently reused. People like Cameron Mitchell, Hope Holiday, and Stack Pierce. He figured out how to make movies his way completely independently using the resources and the people he trusted.
And his concepts just get better and better. My absolute favorite plot has to be the 1993 film Showdown. He brings back his character James Long from Kill Point, but the setting is just top-tier indie cinema.
It really is.
It's about a mafia retirement village called Sanctuary that gets invaded by a violent biker gang.
A mafia retirement village under siege by bikers.
That is absolute cinematic gold. You can completely see why audiences and video rental stores ate these movies up.
It's wildly inventive. He knew exactly what the exploitation market demanded: high concepts, distinct characters, and authentic martial arts action. And what is so compelling is how long he sustained this creative output.
He definitely didn't quit.
He didn't just have a brief stint in the 80s and then retire to the golf course. He kept going, and as he got older, he started to explicitly weave the different threads of his life together on screen even more overtly.
Fast forward to the 2000s, specifically the year 2005. He releases a film called Transformed. Fong stars in it as a character literally named The Fist.
The Fist.
Yes, but he also directed it, produced, it was heavily involved in the editing, and amazingly, he even composed the theme song.
This raises an important question. What drives a person to keep creating, to keep pushing the boundaries of their output at an age when society tells them they should be slowing down?
Yeah, he would have been, what, late 70s there?
Exactly, because Transformed is where we see the ultimate unambiguous blending of his life's work. The film explicitly features Christian themes and a very strong anti-drug message.
Bringing it all together.
He is taking his theological background, his degree in social work, and his martial arts cinema expertise and combining them into a single piece of art. He's utilizing the Trojan horse of the exploitation action film to deliver a sermon.
A guy nicknamed The Fist, delivering an anti-drug sermon through martial arts choreography. You really can't make it up. And you mentioned his age. Leo Fong did not slow down. While most people are looking at retirement at 65, Leo Fong was gearing up for a massive, late career resurgence.
He possessed an unstoppable internal engine. He continued to act in action films right up until his early 90s. His late career work, particularly his collaborations with the independent director Len Kabasinski, is a testament to that enduring physical and creative drive.
The Len Kabasinski era is a joy to read about because it really highlights how beloved Fong was by the fans. In 2018, Fong co-starred in Kabasinski's film Challenge of Five Gauntlets.
And the fans loved it.
The reviews from the indie film community were incredibly warm. One reviewer called it a perfect throwback to the great days of the 80s when these kinds of films swarmed the video store shelves. Another reviewer specifically celebrated his return, saying it was great to see the man, the myth, and Mr. Loblo himself kicking ass again.
He was a living legend to the fans of that genre. And incredibly, a movie made in 2018 when he was around 90 years old wasn't his final role.
No, it wasn't.
His last film appearance was in another Kabasinski project called Pact of Vengeance, which was released in 2022.
Let's just pause on that date. 2022. Leo Fong was 93 years old. He played a character named Zian, the owner of a local garage, who turns to his old Special Forces outfit known as the Obliterator.
The Obliterators.
To help deal with a violent extortion gang that attacked his granddaughter. Think about the physical reality of that. You are 93 years old, and your job for the day is to go to a movie set, learn your lines, and play a guy calling in the Obliterators to fight an extortion gang. The sheer vitality required to do that is staggering.
It perfectly encapsulates his lifelong refusal to be categorized, marginalized, or limited by external expectations. He didn't let the immense adversity in rural Arkansas dictate his future. He didn't let the rigid traditions of martial arts stop him from creating his own practical system. And he certainly didn't let age dictate what he could or couldn't do creatively and physically.
So what does this all mean? How do we summarize a life this massive? Leo Fong passed away on February 18, 2022, at the age of 93 in Los Angeles, California. He left behind his wife Minerva, 3 children, his grandchildren, his youngest sister, and a sprawling legacy that permanently impacted theology, martial arts, and independent cinema.
If we look at the core philosophy of Leo Fong, he demonstrated a profound truth. Knowledge and passion are most valuable when they are actively applied and integrated. Society constantly tells us to pick a single lane.
Right, be the athlete or the scholar.
Exactly, or be the artist, or be the spiritual leader. Leo Fong looked at those lanes and decided to drive in all of them simultaneously. He proved you can be a minister, a boxer, an author, a social worker, and an action star. He lived a life of total integration.
Total integration. And that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Leo Fong was starring in action movies at 93 years old. Society heavily conditions us to view aging as an inevitable period of winding down, of slowly stepping away from our passions, our creativity, and our physical capabilities.
Which he completely ignored.
He completely rejected that premise. He treated his 90s with the same creative ferocity as his 20s. It makes you wonder how many self-imposed expiration dates have we placed on our own ambitions, our own goals, or our own physical capabilities, simply because society tells us that it's too late. And more importantly, what completely disparate interests or passions do you have that you've been keeping in separate boxes, and what incredible unique thing might happen if you finally smash them together? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time.